Hey everybody, thanks for joining me here for this video on human resource management. We're covering chapter 1 of our textbook, which is Fundamentals of Human Resource Management by Noe and Associates. I'm Billy Obenauer, and basically what we're going to be going over in this lesson are just some of the key introductory factors to human resource management, so you have an idea what to be prepared for as we start this class. Now, human resource managers are responsible for managing one of the most important resources within an organization, and that's its human capital. Okay, now as we think about human capital is also often identified in a variety of different places. So we'll look at training. How well have our employees been trained? What does their education look like? And human resource managers work to one, both provide training to employees, but two, also hire employees who have appropriate training. Part of human capital is related to an employee's experience or the amount of time that they've spent doing a job. Okay, the employee's ability to make judgments or make important decisions in difficult situations. All right, we also consider the intelligence of employees. And intelligence could be practical intelligence, like job-related intelligence, could be intelligence more when we think about kind of like aptitude or IQ. There's a variety of different types of intelligence that contribute to human capital. Relationships are an important component to human capital as well. If you think about the industry that I was in previously, I managed a lot of salespeople. Okay, and the relationships that my salespeople had with customers and clients were very critical to our success. And then we have insight. Okay, so when we think about insight, just the different perspectives that people have based upon their experiences, their knowledge, their intelligence, their judgment, and so on and so forth. But insight's very important as well. So human resource managers, they impact all these types of human capital. And they do that through one, hiring the right people, but two, providing the right experiences for those people. Okay. In addition to impacting the type of human capital that we have in our organizations, human resource managers also impact the behavior of that capital. Okay. And how they impact the behavior is through efforts to motivate people and influence the effort that people put forth in their job. All right. Let's face it. We could hire the best people, the best employees out there, but if they aren't putting in the right effort, that's not going to have a very positive impact on our organization. All right. So making sure that people are motivated through having rewarding job structures and appropriate pay and incentives and so on is an important component to the job of human resource managers as well. Now, if we get the right people, the right types of human capital in place, and we also take those people and get them motivated and putting forth the right amount of effort, then that's going to improve our organizational performance. All right. And that's how human resource managers contribute to the bottom line. Now, as we think about types of human capital or components to human capital, all right, what I want you to think about also is that sometimes these components to human capital can be related. There might be correlations. All right. So I've highlighted a few here. The first one I've highlighted is experience and insight. And if you think about it, experience can be related to insight because the more time we spend in a job, the more we understand the intricacies of how that job works. And I'll give you an example from my career. I managed in the building trade industry. Okay, so we dealt with products like lumber and windows and insulation. And insulation was a product that we often wanted to sell. Okay, it was really important to sell insulation because there were back end rebates on the product that really helped impact the company's profitability. All right, so at the first company that I was ever employed at in the industry, we sold a lot of insulation. So I understood that market very, very well. All right. Later on in my career, I ended up with a larger company, a Fortune 500 company, and they wanted to sell more insulation. Okay. But the problem was they didn't have the product priced well enough. Okay. Now, this company, when they would check competitors' pricing, they would just call up a company, ask for a price on a product, get that price, and look at that and say, okay, here we're competitive, we're good to go. Okay, so they thought they were competitive, but they didn't understand how the product was actually priced in the market. The product was actually priced in what we would call job lots. So contractors would go to suppliers and ask for a price on a specific amount of installation. They'd get volume discounts, but those prices weren't very public. Okay, so I'm in my job. I have a corporate person giving me a hard time about not selling not selling more insulation, and I said we can't sell your product here because the pricing's not good enough. They said our pricing managers have checked this, and we know that we have the right pricing in the market. And I said no, you don't have the right pricing in the market. I know the insulation market. I said so we're not going to be able to sell this product in the volume you want. They said until you get me proof that our pricing is not good, we're going to expect you to sell this. So I said, okay, I'm on it. And I went ahead and I created a fake company. I called it Williams Contracting, and I made a Gmail account for it. And I changed my cell phone voicemail so that it said, "Hello, you've reached Williams Contracting," and so on and so forth. And then I went around to all my local competitors and I bid a job lot of insulation. Okay, went ahead and did this. Got a whole bunch of quotes. The quotes were all a lot cheaper than our pricing was, and I gave them to this person who was giving me a hard time. And I said, now until we can match these prices, leave me alone about selling more insulation, and leave my employees alone about it. All right. And he said, "Oh my gosh, how'd you get these prices?" I said, he said, "I have no idea this is the case." And I said, "Look, I was in this industry. I understand what this pricing is going to be." That was on a Wednesday. On a Saturday, I got a call from the vice president of purchasing, wanting to know how I got all this pricing. We had a discussion, and I explained what my experiences were in the industry and how I understood how our competitors were pricing this product. So I told her what I did to go out and get these prices. Well, they had never price shopped this way before. And this was really eye opening to the company. And within a month, they had a whole new pricing structure for this product. All right. And the reality of this is, though, if I hadn't had the experiences that I had had in this area, I would not have had the insight that I did into the pricing. So my experiences contributed to my insight and helped impact the human capital that I was bringing to my organization. Experience can also be correlated with relationships. Okay, so the more time you spend in a position, the more people you're going to know. Okay, so for a salesperson who's with a company for over 20 years, they're going to have a lot of clients, a lot of relationships that we can't just remake in a day, and those employees bring a lot of value in that way as well. Okay, some other correlations that we might think of are we might think about intelligence being related to judgment, intelligence being related to insight. Okay, we could think about training and intelligence. Do they have any type of relationship? But the point that I'm getting at here is I want you to think about, how are the components of human capital related? We can't really isolate these components because very often they're interwoven. Now, one thing that's important to consider as a human resource manager is what makes human resources provide a competitive advantage for our company. Okay. Now, the first component to a competitive advantage that we'll think about is that human resources have to be valuable. All right. So people need to do something that provides a benefit to the company. Okay. If it's a salesperson, they need to be somebody who has a high amount of sales, that they're generating revenue. Okay. Maybe it's a safety inspector who's very good at catching potential safety hazards. All these types of things add value and contribute to our competitive advantage. All right. For a human resource to contribute to a competitive advantage, it needs to be rare. All right. If the human resources value is something that everyone can provide, then it's not going to give us a competitive advantage. So, for example, if we were looking at saying we needed a person who had the ability to breathe, well, all people have the ability to breathe. Hiring people who have the ability to breathe is not going to contribute to our competitive advantage. Okay. However, hiring somebody who has the ability to do computer coding at a very high level, that may be something that is a little more rare. All right. Human resources that provide a competitive advantage cannot be imitated. All right. And what we mean by that is that they cannot be imitated by other people. All right. So if you think about your experience as a student, you've probably had some really phenomenal professors throughout that experience. And each one of those professors probably brings something different and unique to the table. Okay. And it's something that you'd look at and you'd say, well, why can't everybody be like this? Well, the reason everybody can't be like that is because the skill that they're bringing is one that we can't imitate, and that's what helps them provide value to the college. All right, and then the fourth component is there's no good substitution. Okay, and by no good substitution, we mean you can't replace the people with something else. So if you think about say a self-checkout machine replacing cashiers or a kiosk replacing cashiers, that type of thing. Okay, that's what we're talking about when we refer to substitutions. And human resources that are adding value can't be replaced, or human resources that are providing competitive advantage cannot be replaced by machines. Now, one of the exercises that I like to do with students is to think about, are all employees human resources that are contributing to a competitive advantage? Okay, and we think about businesses like McDonald's and Walmart. We see cashiers being replaced by kiosks all the time. Okay, and this is really different from years ago. I remember when I was growing up in Warwick, New York, we used to go to the Grand Union for our groceries. Okay, and I still remember who our cashier was. It was always Vicky. It was always Vicky. And we would go in and we would chat, and she knew who all the customers were. She knew who all their kids were. She knew their names, and it was a completely different experience. And the value that she provided was she made the experience of shopping in this grocery store one that we all enjoyed taking part in. And many of the employees in the store contributed to that because we knew people who worked in all the different departments. That was one of the advantages of shopping in that store. Today we don't have all those same types of relationships in our grocery stores. And what we're starting to see is we're starting to see cashiers be replaced by, as I mentioned before, self-checkout machines in Walmart, kiosks in McDonald's, and so on. And the question is, you know, how can we as human resource managers, what steps can we take to ensure that our cashiers are human resources that are contributing to a competitive advantage? And if you think about it, there's a few different things we can think about. How do they enhance the customer experience? So are they telling customers about things that they could purchase that could maybe help them? Are they helping customers apply for credit cards? Are they helping customers resolve issues such as pricing discrepancies? I also can think about in my career, I used to go to Dunkin' Donuts and pick up coffee on the way into work every day. And the cashiers at that store, I remember, recognized my car and would have my coffee ready for me when I came in. Okay. So there's a lot of different ways that people in positions that are sometimes replaced by machines can still provide us with a competitive advantage. But as human resource managers, we need to be brainstorming what are the things that these people can do to provide our company with a competitive advantage so that we can build that into their job and help our employees make us more competitive. Now, when we think about human resource departments, there are three different umbrellas under which we think responsibilities fall. Okay, the first one, and the one that we tend to most quickly associate with human resource managers, is administrative services and transactions. Okay, and this is when human resource managers are hiring employees or making sure they did their training or helping them with their benefits questions, or doing basic processing, payroll tasks, and so on and so forth. Okay, and this is what we think of most traditionally, but this is only the tip of the iceberg as far as what human resource managers do. This is an important part of their job, but it is not the only part of their job. All right, the next one that we have business partner services. Okay, and business partner services is the idea of developing HR systems and working to meet the goals for developing human capital for the company. What do we mean by that? Basically, with business partner services, what we're seeing is leaders in the organization have come up with a goal for what they need HR to be able to do for them, who they need them to hire, how they need people to be trained, things all along those lines. And HR works to meet these objectives. Okay. Then the third piece is a strategic partner. Okay, and a strategic partner is a little bit different from business partner services because as a strategic partner, you're contributing to the company strategy. Okay, and this is key right here. Okay, the difference, as we look at the difference between a business partner service and the strategic partner, is that in the business partner services, what we're seeing is somebody else is developing the strategy and HR is helping to execute it. As a strategic partner, HR has a clear understanding of what it is that the company needs to do to be competitive in the marketplace and is working to help contribute to a strategy to be there and finding ways that HR can help support that strategy. The Society of Human Resource Management, commonly known as SHRM, has identified four different clusters of competencies that HR managers need to be familiar with. Okay, HR managers need to have competencies that are technical, they need to have competencies that are interpersonal, competencies in business, and competencies in leadership. And on the next slide, we're going to break down exactly what that means. What we're looking at here is Sherm's wheel of competencies for HR professionals. Okay, and over on the side here, we have the list of competency types that we looked at on the last slide. So let's take a look over here, and we'll start with looking at the technical competencies. And what you'll see is that human resource expertise is the only technical competency listed on this wheel. So we've got one technical competency. Okay, then we have interpersonal competencies. And there we have relationship management, we have communications, and we have global and cultural effectiveness. So interpersonal competencies rank pretty highly here. 3 out of 9 of the competencies listed here fall into the category of interpersonal. Okay, then we have business competencies. And under business competencies, we see consultation, we see business acumen, and we see critical evaluation. So similar to interpersonal, that's 3 of the competencies right there. And then finally, we have leadership. And under that, we see leadership and navigation, and we see ethical practice. Okay, so leadership accounts for 2 of the 9 competencies that are listed up here. Now, why are we showing you this wheel? Because this is what I want you to remember. Many students go through their degree programs, and maybe some of them have limited opportunities to take specific human resource classes. Okay. And they might be worried about whether or not a career in the field of human resource management is right for them because they've only taken 1 or 2 HR classes. But here's the thing I want you to remember when we look at the wheel of competencies, there's only one slice of that wheel that calls for you to have a technical competencies or expertise in human resource management. Okay, that's 1/9. The rest of the competencies are all in other areas. Okay, such as business, where we're looking at consultation, business acumen, and critical evaluation. You've probably covered those in a lot of your classes. Leadership, where we're looking at ethics and leadership and navigation. Again, you've probably covered that in a lot of your classes. And then we have relationship management, communications, and global and cultural effectiveness. You've probably taken an international business course that would cover global and cultural effectiveness. You've probably taken some communications classes, and you've probably worked on developing your relationship management through group projects and other activities on campus. So, really, it's important to understand where technical expertise fits into this wheel so that you can go into your career with confidence that you are qualified to work in the field of HR. Now, a company's founders are the first supervisors within that company. And one of the themes that you are going to hear me say over and over throughout the course of this class is that supervisors have a lot of HR responsibilities. So you may be taking this class because you love HR and you want to be an HR manager, and that's why you're in this class. You may be taking this class because you're interested and you want to learn about the topic, but you don't really know what you want to do. You may be taking it because it's a requirement for your degree. But one of the things that is critical for you to understand is that even if you don't want to be an HR manager, if you plan on being some type of supervisor or manager in an organization, a lot of what we're going to talk about over the course of this class is going to be relevant to the work that you do. Okay. Now, as we think about supervisors having HR responsibilities and founders being the first supervisors, you'll look, and over here I have a picture of Tony Hsieh. Okay, for those of you who don't know Tony Hsieh is the former CEO of Zappos, and he really is one of the people who I look at for as a great role model for leadership. Okay, so I draw on examples from Tony Hsieh quite often in my courses. And the reason I think Tony Hsieh is relevant here is because I want you to understand a little bit about his history, and you're gonna see where I want to go with this. So Tony was a very entrepreneurial person. When he was at Harvard, he started his first informal business, which was basically buying full pizzas at the pizza shop, walking through the dorms and selling them by the slice because students couldn't get slices delivered. So that was kind of like one of his first entrepreneurial ventures. Then as he left school, he started a company called Link Exchange. Okay, and Link Exchange was basically a company that worked for like targeted advertising on the internet. It was kind of one of the first companies to do that type of thing. And Link Exchange grew to be rather large, and it grew pretty fast. And Tony was highly successful with Link Exchange, and ultimately he had a buyout offer from Microsoft. Tony was pretty relieved to get the buyout offer from Microsoft because he didn't really love working at Link Exchange. Okay. One of the things that he realized as he was building that company was that he had focused a lot on the work that the company did, but he didn't focus a lot about what the company was becoming in terms of its people. So there wasn't a great focus on company culture. And he actually hated working for his own company. And when Microsoft bought him out, they offered Tony a bonus to stay on and help with the transition. And initially, he took the bonus, and then or he agreed to take the bonus, and then he stopped and he said, "No, I'm not going to take the bonus. I just need to be out of here," because he did not like working for the company he created because of the culture that had developed. Okay, so Tony left Link Exchange. He had money from the buyout, and he started a venture capital firm called Venture Frogs. Okay. And Venture Frogs was basically just looking for small new startups to invest in. And one of the last startups that they met with was Zappos. Okay. And Tony heard the pitch for Zappos, and he really believed in what the company was going to do. He believed that there was a market for Zappos, and he agreed to invest in Zappos. And he actually went on and joined the company and played a very important role in the company's development and eventually became CEO. But in his leadership role in Zappos, one of the focal points that Tony always had was to make sure that the company's culture was exactly what he wanted it to be, because he said he didn't want this new company to become like his old company. He didn't want to create a second company that he didn't like working for. And culture was critical to Zappos. Okay. And Zappos' core values, if you look them up, were very, very culture focused. My favorite one of their values is create fun and a little weirdness. So they really were not traditional values that the company had. And this culture was so important to Tony that when Tony agreed to have Zappos be acquired by Amazon, he met with Jeff Bezos, and they actually reached an agreement about allowing Zappos to continue to operate in a way that would allow its unique culture to continue to contribute to the organizational environment. Now, there are a lot of different components to human resource management that supervisors contribute to, in addition to culture, like I talked about before. So, human supervisors help to identify and define jobs because they're more familiar with the work than anybody. They forecast HR needs. Okay, when I was in industry as a manager, I used to have to forecast my sales, and my HR needs were projected off of the sales. All right, they often provide training. Okay, very often this training is not formal. A lot of times it's informal as they teach their employees, and sometimes they also can engage in formal training. They'll work on interviewing and selecting candidates. So HR may sit in on an interview with them, HR may conduct a second interview, but often it's managers and supervisors who are conducting the interviews. Okay, they're responsible for appraising performance because once again, they're most familiar with what the job expectations are and the work that's being done. Based upon those performance appraisals, they will recommend pay increases and promotions for employees. Supervisors are also responsible for communicating policies as they come down. Okay. And then finally, they work to motivate their employees with support from pay, benefits, and other rewards. So, they take that leadership role and utilize different components of the HR to help contribute to effective leadership. Another issue that is highly relevant to human resource management is ethics. Okay, and ethics basically deals with what's right and wrong. But the truth of the matter is that it's not always easy to identify what is ethical and what isn't ethical. In addition to teaching human resource management, one of the other classes that I teach is applied ethical issues in management. And what I can tell you is when I present an ethical dilemma to my class in that course, there are often a variety of different viewpoints and not necessarily one distinctly right answer. Okay, so ethics are a very difficult thing to deal with. All right, where they really come into play in organizations, we see ethical issues arise when people's values are in conflict with the goals of the organization. So HR needs to work to try to make sure that people's values and the goals of the organization are compatible. All right. And a lot of the ethical issues that arise in the workplace involve human resource management. Okay. So they might involve, how do we pay our employees? Do we have equitable pay? Is what we're doing fair? What about our selection processes? Did we make sure that we were unbiased in our selection processes? All these types of things involve ethics. Now, as we think about ethics in organizations, we think about what types of rights do our employees have. And the rights that are listed here are ethical rights, not legal rights. So employers are not always legally obligated to provide these, but these are things that we want to strive for. All right. So one of the ethical rights that we want to strive for is free consent. Okay. And what we mean by free consent is allowing people to make decisions about what they're doing and make informed decisions. All right. So if you hire an employee and tell them that they're going to work in a very autonomous position, but then when they come in, you don't give them any autonomy. You didn't give them free consent because they didn't actually agree to the conditions that they're coming in to work in. Privacy, that involves an employee's right to keep their private life separate from their work life. Okay, and this is becoming more and more challenging today, particularly in the time of social media. Okay, freedom of conscience. We should not be putting our people in a position where they believe they have to do the wrong thing. Okay, where they're doing something that is against their ethical and moral code. By freedom of speech, this doesn't mean we're not talking about allowing our employees to say anything they want, but freedom of speech is really giving our people the right to speak up if they do feel that we've put them in an ethically compromising situation. All right, and then due process is basically giving people a right to be heard before any disciplinary actions are taken. Okay, so if we're looking at disciplining or firing somebody, giving them due process means performing a proper investigation, hearing their point of view, gathering information before we make any final decisions. And that brings us to the end of this lesson. Hope you learned something. Hope you enjoyed it. And we'll see you soon. Thanks for joining me.